Sitting down for dinner with my son and his wife was a big deal, mostly because we had spent years not speaking and had finally mended things. Out of nowhere, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Leave now. Don't mention this to your son." Trusting my instinct, I did as it said, and what happened next left me stunned. Within 30 minutes, the police were at their door, and what unfolded was truly unimaginable. At home, I was busy washing Margaret's favorite coffee mug yet again. I'd lost count of how many times that week. It was the same old routine, scrubbing a plate, a fork, and a mug after another solitary meal. The kitchen felt enormous without her usual singing or her gentle nagging about my cluttered newspapers. I carefully dried the mug and put it back in its spot, almost as if paying tribute to past joy. The fridge quietly hummed, surrounded by old photos held up by a mismatched collection of magnets, and my eyes found a picture of Rick at his high school graduation. He was 17, smiling, while Margaret held him proudly. That was long before the financial arguments and the last fight that echoed in my mind until the phone rang, snapping me back. I grabbed a towel to dry my hands and picked up the phone. Seeing the caller ID made my heart jump. It was Rick. I was momentarily frozen, as a whole year of silence seemed like an ocean between us. Our last conversation ended with him storming off because I refused to fund another business venture. Margaret would have handled it better. She always knew what to say. "Hello," I managed to get out. "Dad." Rick's voice came through, hesitating like when he was a boy in trouble. "It's me." Clutching the phone tighter, my heart raced. "Rick, I didn't think," I began, only for him to cut in with a quiet admission. "I know. It feels like—" He paused to catch his breath. Way too long. I sank back into my recliner. Margaret had insisted we get it for my back, its leather worn from years of use. "How are you, son?" I asked. "Really good. Emma and I were just talking about how much we miss you. We miss being a family." Hearing family was a punch to my heart. We used to be that before pride and stubbornness pushed us apart. "I miss it too," I confessed. "Dad, how about coming over for dinner tonight? Emma's making pot roast, your favorite. We could have a real talk." On the side table sat a family photo from Rick and Emma's wedding 5 years back, when times were still good. Margaret always used to say, "Give it time. Families come back." "Tonight?" I blurted out. "I know it's sudden, but Emma's already cooking, and we just don't want to lose any more time." There was a certain rawness in his voice that tugged at me, reminiscent of a kid scared of thunderstorms. Perhaps Margaret had been right. Families might have a way to heal. "What time?" I found myself asking. 7:30. I'll text you the address. We moved to Montclair last year," Rick said. Montclair was fancy, but Rick always aimed high. "I'll be there. Thanks for this chance, Dad." After hanging up, I sat in the twilight, clutching the family photo. Margaret's smile seemed to leap from the frame, like she was whispering, "Jonathan, it's time to go home." The silence after that call didn't feel lonely. It felt hopeful. I put the photo back and stood up with a newfound resolve. Tonight would be meaningful. Tonight I'd reconnect with my son. Upstairs, my bedroom was a repository of memories. Margaret's perfume bottles still lined the dresser, and particles danced in the late afternoon sun streaming through lace curtains. Digging through my closet, I pushed past the familiar tees and sweaters until I found the navy suit hidden in its garment bag. The fabric felt sturdy in my hands, a wool blend Margaret had insisted on buying for Rick's graduation. "You'll need something nice for important events," she'd said lovingly as she smoothed the lapels. "Our son's graduation is one of those times." I laid the suit on the bed, unwrapping it with care, remembering the pride I felt entering that auditorium with Margaret and watching Rick stride across the stage. That same suit saw me through job interviews, anniversaries, and even Margaret's funeral. Tonight, it would be a part of another pivotal moment. The hot shower melted away the tension in my muscles, tension I hadn't noticed before. As I shaved, my reflection met my gaze, filled with hope. When did I age this much? The wrinkles around my eyes were deeper, and gray streaked my temples. Would Rick notice? Would Emma see how lonely I'd become? Margaret's cologne still sat untouched on the bathroom counter since she passed away. Chanel No. 5 was her yearly Christmas treat. I gently touched the bottle, choosing my aftershave instead. Some memories are too sacred to touch. Dressed up, I took one last look in the mirror. The suit fit, maybe a bit looser now. I grabbed a bottle of aged whiskey from the cabinet, something to ease tensions and build bridges. My phone buzzed. Rick's message. 247 Elmwood Drive, Montclair. Can't wait to see you, Dad. I ordered an Uber, pausing as I entered the address. Montclair was a 40-minute ride away, a world apart from my quiet Brooklyn street. The app showed an 8-minute wait. Watching by the window, I saw the brownstones fade into the evening shadows. Mrs. Chen waved from her stoop, and I waved back, feeling lighter for the first time in a while. Maybe tonight could change everything. Maybe families could find their way back together. The Uber arrived promptly, a clean sedan driven by a cheerful guy chatting about the nice weather. As we drove off, Brooklyn's familiar sights morphed into wide highways and then tidy suburbs. Houses grew larger, lawns more manicured, driveways more spacious. By the time we reached New Jersey, I was stunned by mansions that could house 6 families like mine. "Montclair's a beautiful spot," commented the driver, noticing my amazement. "Lots of successful folks live around here." "I'm here to visit my son," I said proudly, although I was puzzled by how Rick managed to live in such luxury. "Lucky to have family here," the driver remarked. Indeed, I thought, though a bit of anxiety mixed with my excitement. How did Rick buy a house in one of New Jersey's most expensive areas? The Uber stopped at a house that looked like something out of a magazine. Stunned, I stared at the stone columns and perfectly manicured topiaries, probably worth more than my rent. A circular driveway wrapped around a fancy fountain, its water gleaming in the evening light. 2 luxury cars, a Mercedes and a BMW, were parked like shiny badges of success. "Here we are, sir," the driver said happily. What a place. My hands trembled as I sorted out the cash and gave a generous tip. "Thanks. Have a great night." Walking on the pristine pavement, the car door felt unusually heavy. My shoes, although polished, showed signs of wear as they clicked on the stone, carrying me to an entrance fit for a luxury hotel. Neatly trimmed hedges lined the walkway, and motion sensor lights guided my path with dramatic flair. Just as I was reaching for the brass doorbell, the heavy oak door opened. A middle-aged Hispanic woman with kind eyes and graying hair stood there, dressed sharply in black, the very picture of a professional housekeeper. Her smile was warm, but something flashed in her eyes for a moment. Maybe concern, perhaps a warning. It disappeared so quickly, I wondered if I'd imagined it. "Mr. Miller," she said warmly, inviting me into a foyer that made my living room feel like a cramped closet. "I'm Maria. Mr. Rick and Miss Emma have been eagerly awaiting you." The place was astounding, with marble floors leading to a grand, movie-like staircase. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow on the oil paintings adorning the walls. The air was filled with the scent of real flowers, not the fake silk ones I often chose. "Dad," I heard Rick's deep voice from inside the house. His footsteps resounded as he appeared, looking effortlessly stylish, as if stepping straight from a magazine cover, with a sleek suit, perfectly styled hair, and teeth whiter than I remembered. He hugged me tightly, holding on just a moment longer than expected. "You look great," he said, stepping back to take me in with a mix of gratitude and nervousness. "Truly, you do." Emma appeared beside him like she'd just drifted in. Her silk dress probably cost more than my car, with makeup and jewelry that screamed sophistication, and a smile so impeccable it practically looked rehearsed. "Jonathan," she greeted, leaning in to plant a kiss on my cheek, her expensive perfume wrapping around me. "You look fantastic, and we're delighted you made it." I forced a smile, still a bit thrown by all the grandeur surrounding us. "This place is incredible," I said, genuinely impressed. "How did you pull this off in real estate?" Rick chimed in with a laugh that came off a bit too bright. "It was all about timing the market right. Mostly just got lucky." Something in his tone made me pause, but Emma was already guiding me along effortlessly. "Come on, let's get you settled. Maria, could you take Mr. Miller's coat?" I handed over my nicest jacket, suddenly feeling a bit out of place in such a lavish setting. Maria accepted it with a kind yet slightly concerned smile, heading toward what seemed to be a coat closet large enough to house a small family. "I brought this," I stated, holding out a thoughtfully picked bottle of whiskey. "How about we share a glass?" Rick's eyes lit up as he took a look. "Dad, this is perfect. You shouldn't have, but I'm glad you did." He patted my shoulder with somewhat forced enthusiasm. "Emma's been cooking all day. She remembered pot roast was your favorite." I was surprised that Emma knew what dishes I liked. 5 years in and only a handful of meals together, I didn't remember pot roast ever being mentioned. But her smile put me at ease, and I let the confusion slide. "That's incredibly thoughtful," I told her sincerely, even though I felt a bit perplexed. "Family is everything," she said smoothly, wrapping her arm around mine. "That's what counts the most." Rick guided us toward what I assumed was the dining room, his steps confident, but the tension in his eyes evident. Maria vanished somewhere further into the house, leaving us to this picture-perfect family reunion. As we moved through rooms that seemed fit for a glossy magazine, I struggled with the stark contrast between the wealth surrounding me and the son who had asked for money just last year. The dining room stretched out like a scene from a period drama, mahogany table set for 4, with china glowing under the chandelier. Silverware gleamed against pristine white linens, and the aroma of cooking pot roast seeped through the swinging doors of a kitchen likely bigger than my apartment. "This is magnificent," I said, genuinely awed. Emma beamed at the compliment. "We want tonight to feel special, Jonathan. A fresh start for all of us." Rick pulled out my chair with the smooth grace of someone accustomed to luxury, and I couldn't help but wish Margaret could see this. Her son had achieved something way beyond our modest dreams, something she might have found pride in. Maybe she'd approve of this new start I was about to make with him. The dining room enveloped us with its elegance, a spread straight out of a lifestyle magazine. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier's light, casting rainbows across the crisp linens. The silverware was perfectly placed beside china that likely cost more than my rent. Every setting was an artwork, complete with perfectly arranged forks and napkins folded to perfection. "This is extraordinary," I murmured, filled with admiration. As my fingers traced the sleek surface of the mahogany table, Rick pulled out the chair at the head for me, grinning. "Only the best for family gatherings, right, Dad?" Emma sat elegantly to my left, with Rick on my right. The arrangement seemed intentional, as if to capture every reaction and steer the conversation effortlessly. Maria reappeared from what I assumed was the kitchen, presenting appetizers that looked like tiny artworks. "How about some whiskey to kick things off?" Rick asked, already popping open the bottle I'd brought. As he poured the golden liquid into hefty crystal glasses, the light caught and made it shimmer. "We need a proper toast." He handed me a glass, filled more liberally than I'd have done myself. The warmth of the whiskey spread through me as Emma raised her wine glass with a bit of flair. "To family," she chimed, smiling brightly. "To forgiveness and fresh starts." "To Margaret," Rick added, his voice catching slightly. "She'd want us here, like this." The burn of the whiskey settled warmly as we all took a drink. Margaret always believed that a bit of alcohol was good for loosening tongues and hearts alike. As I took in the luxurious surroundings that night, I couldn't help but wonder what she'd make of it all. Emma, genuinely curious, leaned in and asked, "Tell us about the restaurants. Rick keeps saying you've built an empire from the ground up. Empire sounded a bit much to me. Sipping my drink, I found myself feeling surprisingly relaxed. It's really about hard work and believing in people. Margaret always said to treat your staff like family and customers like friends. Come on, Dad. Don't sell yourself short. Rick chimed in, refilling my glass before I realized it was empty. You've got 7 locations now. That's a feat by any measure. 7. He'd been keeping track even during our quiet spell, which warmed my heart when I realized he cared more than I thought. Maria brought out the soup with her usual skill, though her hands had a slight tremor as she placed the bowl in front of me. The rich lobster bisque and its delicate porcelain reminded me of how far we'd journeyed from my humble Brooklyn kitchen. Ever think about hanging up your hat? Emma asked casually, cutting her bread with a precision that caught my eye. Taking it easy? The restaurants are my lifeline. They're what Margaret and I built together. I noticed myself savoring the drinks more than usual. The mix of good company and smooth whiskey helped me lower my defenses. Every spot we created, Margaret's influence was clear. Rick and Emma exchanged a look, one I chose to overlook. Their silent communication was like what you see with couples who've been together forever. Emma touched my hand for a moment, her fingers cool to the touch. But you can't work forever, Rick probed gently. Have you thought about passing the torch, making future plans? His question felt significant, but the whiskey dulled its edge. Step by step, son, I replied calmly. Maria came back with the main course, a pot roast just like Margaret's. How did Emma manage to get this right? We hadn't shared many meals over the years. This is just right, I said. Exactly like my wife's. Emma's smile seemed a bit forced. I wanted tonight to be special, a reminder that family takes care of each other. As we dined, Rick kept the conversation lively with tales of his real estate endeavors, though specifics were sparse. Emma was sharp, probing with questions about the restaurant world, profit margins, property values. Their interest seemed intense, almost like they were sizing up a business deal. The night went on, and the room grew cozier. My head felt lighter than I expected from just a couple of drinks. I blamed it on the rich food, the good company, and the relief of mending fences. Nothing more. Rick glanced at his watch when he thought I wasn't looking. Emma seemed to watch my drinking like she was a bartender with a wary eye on a customer. Maria hurried between the kitchen and dining room, a fork clattering loudly as it hit the marble floor. There was something itching at the edge of my mind, but the liquor clouded my thoughts. It all felt a bit surreal, like I was watching from a distance. Since when did I get tipsy so easily? I reached into my jacket for my phone, thinking about the opening of the Queen last month. Margaret would have been over the moon. The cheerful crowd welcomed us warmly, but then my phone buzzed just as I was pulling it out. The unexpected vibration threw me off while I was mid-sentence. Sorry, I mumbled, giving Rick and Emma a quick sheepish grin. I assumed it was probably the night manager with a routine inquiry, but when I glanced at the screen, it showed a number I didn't recognize. Same area code, yet unfamiliar digits. I paused, my thumb hovering over the alert. Usually, any restaurant crises came through known contacts. Miguel from Park Slope, Sarah from Crown Heights, Tony from our Queen's spot. The phone buzzed again, insistent this time. Is something wrong? Rick asked, his concern clear. It's just an unknown number, I replied, subtly hiding the screen with my napkin, driven by some instinct I didn't understand. A bold text message flashed up. Stand up and leave, now. Don't say a word to your son. A chill cascaded over me. The opulent dining room seemed to blur and spin slightly. Was it shock, or the whiskey fogging my mind? I reread the message, hoping I'd misread it. But no, the demand was clear. Dad. Emma's voice felt distant. You look like you've seen a ghost. Are you all right? I forced my features into what I hoped was a casual facade, slipping the phone back into my pocket. though my hands trembled more than they should have. "Sure," I replied, just feeling the rich food a bit heavier than I thought it would. But inside, I was sure something was off. Some stranger had access to my private number, knew exactly where I was, and told me to leave without any clear reason. Was it because of Rick? Or was this dinner, that had seemed perfect at first, actually a trap? The whiskey swirled in my glass, catching the light as my slightly shaking fingers betrayed my calm facade. 2 drinks shouldn't make me dizzy, especially after eating. "Maybe you should have some water," Emma gently suggested, already catching Maria's attention. Rick scrutinized my face. "You sure everything's all right? You went white as a sheet for a second." "Absolutely." The lie was effortless. "Just need to excuse myself for a minute." "Bathroom?" "Of course," Rick directed toward the hallway. "Second door on the left. Maria's bringing dessert shortly." Standing cautiously, I checked to make sure I wouldn't wobble. Although the room swayed slightly, I managed to walk normally toward the hall. Rick and Emma's worried whispers trailed behind me. The hallway stretched out, lined with fancy art pieces and soft lights. The second door on the left was probably a powder room, but an instinct led me further, toward what seemed like the kitchen door. The message was haunting me. Whoever sent it knew something critical that I didn't. Someone believed I was in enough danger to reach out. Maria was at a large sink, methodically washing crystal glasses. Despite my footsteps likely being audible on the marble floor, she didn't acknowledge my presence at all, oblivious to me. Past the kitchen, the door opened to what appeared to be a garden, a way out, a place to catch a breath, away from Rick and Emma's piercing gazes. I edged past Maria, expecting her to turn, to question my intrusion, to raise the alarm. Yet, she remained focused, though I noticed her shoulders slightly tensed as I walked by. I stepped into the manicured backyard, resembling something out of a private club. Motion-activated lights illuminated my path over the well-tended lawn toward a gate by the fence. My phone felt like a weight in my pocket, its ominous message ticking away like a time bomb. Beyond the fence, streetlights hinted at escape, just a step away from the chaos the message had foreshadowed. Quickening my steps, I didn't bother with how my damp dress shoes were staining against the wet grass. The gate opened onto a serene street, lined with opulent homes hiding countless secrets. Shaking, I pulled out my phone, opened the ride-sharing app, and set a pickup location a block away from Rick's. 5 minutes until it arrived. 5 minutes to figure out if I was imagining things, or if there was real danger. The phone in my hand was proof of something, though what wasn't clear. That message with its capitalized urgency set off every survival instinct Margaret instilled in me. Her advice was always firm. Listen first when danger's near, questions later. Headlights from the approaching Uber cut through the night, offering a lifeline. Climbing into the back seat, I gave the driver my Brooklyn address and immediately dialed the number that had shattered my evening. It rang twice before a cautious and neutral voice answered, "I hoped you'd call." "Who are you?" I snapped, my tone harsher than anticipated. "Why the warning?" "I can't disclose my identity, but your situation was dire tonight." "How could that be?" I retorted. "I was merely dining with my son." The voice held an unsettling pause before continuing. "Your son has a $2.3 million debt to people known for more than just intimidation tactics." As traffic stilled, the Uber driver peeked through the mirror, likely curious about why I had gone eerily silent. Clutching the phone, the words replayed in my mind like an incessant echo. "That's not true," I said again, but my voice faltered. "Rick's into real estate and lives in a luxurious mansion. He's lost it all gambling, borrowed for debts at casinos, poker, and sports betting against loan sharks," the voice revealed somberly. "He has 2 weeks before consequences follow." Instinctively, my hand moved to the door handle, as if I could run from this devastating revelation, even as the car kept moving. As we cruised through Montclair, I couldn't help but notice how the posh neighborhoods with their immaculate lawns seemed to hide some unsavory secrets. But even if that's true, I said thoughtfully, why steer me away from the dinner? The whiskey you brought contained Zetrolum, came the reply. It makes alcohol 5 times stronger, leaving you open to persuasion. The truth hit like a brick. That's why I'd felt so dizzy, why just 2 drinks had me as tipsy as though I'd had 6, and suddenly I was chatting about private business affairs. I recalled Rick urging me to open my gift immediately, Emma keeping a close eye on me, topping up my glass when I wasn't paying attention. They had legal papers ready, the voice continued. They planned to transfer all your restaurant properties and business assets and give your son power of attorney. They just needed your signature. The Uber driver focused on the road, gracefully ignoring the obvious tension beside him. Looking out, those familiar suburban streets now seemed to harbor hidden threats. How did you find all this out? I asked. That's irrelevant. What matters is you left without signing anything. Zetrolum with alcohol can cause memory blackouts. They were banking on you forgetting. I thought about Rick's nervous behavior and Emma's fake kindness, their leading questions about succession and retirement. The night replayed like a chilling movie in my mind. Each toast, every top-up, was a calculated move to break down my defenses. I could barely say it. My son would never. But the words stopped short. The child who once begged for bedtime stories had grown into a man desperate enough to drug his dad. The loan sharks gave him a 2-week deadline, 11 days left, the voice added. Why are you helping me? I finally asked. Because what they did was wrong. You needed to know the truth about those you trust. The mystery voice knew too much. Debt figures, drug details, fake documents, more than any outsider should know, close enough to Rick and Emma's plot. Who are you? Someone who sees more than others think. I couldn't just watch while family greed destroyed an innocent man. Maria? Her name hit me like a revelation. Her edgy efficiency at dinner, her avoidance of eye contact, her silence in the kitchen. She knew about the scheme and chose morality over job security. Thanks, I murmured quietly. Hold off on thanking me. They'll quickly realize you're gone. Rick is desperate enough to try again, maybe even more dangerously. The Uber headed for Brooklyn, each mile putting distance between me and my son, who I thought I understood. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Rick, probably frustrated by my long absence from the bathroom. What should I do? Protect yourself. Change your locks. Warn your lawyers. Shift assets to accounts Rick can't touch. He knows your operations from top to bottom. Every vulnerability. Every pattern. The driver met my eyes in the mirror. We're halfway to Brooklyn. Sir, you okay back there? I nodded, unsure of my own words. I could hear the caller's calm breathing on the line, waiting for another question. Would you testify if this hits court? I can't. But the truth comes out when people dig hard enough. My phone registered 3 more missed calls, and Rick's concern was probably turning to alarm with my unusually long absence. He'd soon put it together, that I'd left deliberately, and desperation could drive him dangerously. Stay alert, the voice suggested. People do reckless things when they're desperate. Your son has 11 days to gather $2.3 million, or he'll face worse than just going broke. The call ended, leaving just the Uber driver's soft jazz and the weight of a family ripped apart. I gained, then lost, a son in a single night. Learned what trust costs and the price of naivety. A text from Rick buzzed in. Dad, where are you? We're worried sick. I read the message, then deleted it without a response. The person who sent those words had planned to knock me out cold and take everything Margaret and I had put together. The driver cleared his throat softly. Sir, we're close to the Brooklyn Bridge. Should we still head to the original location? I peered at the city lights shimmering on the dark water, then looked down at my phone. The GPS route to Montclair was still active. Staying safe in Brooklyn felt tempting, but the truth was back in New Jersey. For the first time, I had to choose between my safety and what remained of my family. The Brooklyn skyline, familiar and inviting, offered comfort through the Uber's windshield, like the embrace of my old favorite chair where Margaret's presence still lingered. But safety felt cowardly now, knowing Rick could harm others too. Frustrated, I pulled out Margaret's wedding photo from my wallet. The photo's edges were worn from years of handling, her smile as radiant as it was on the day we promised to build a meaningful life. Margaret never backed down from hard conversations or chose comfort over doing the right thing. She wouldn't run, I whispered to her image. The driver glanced my way in the rearview mirror. "Everything okay back there, sir?" he asked. "Actually, no." I straightened up, feeling my resolve solidify. "I need to make a call, and then we're changing our destination." My hands were shaking as I dialed 911. After 2 rings, a composed voice answered, "Emergency services, what's your emergency?" I took a deep breath and said, "My family's planning to poison me for money." Saying it out loud felt surreal, like a scene from a drama. "I have evidence, and they're at the location with legal documents ready." "Sir, are you in immediate danger?" the officer asked. "Not right now, but I need officers at 247 Elmwood Drive, Montclair, New Jersey. I'm going back to get evidence." The questions came quickly. Method of poisoning? How many involved? Any weapons? My business training took over, enabling quick, precise answers. Clear facts, specific details, actionable information. "Officers are on the way, expected in 20 minutes. Sir, I strongly advise you not to return until they arrive." I looked at Margaret's photo, as if her eyes were calling me to be braver. But if I didn't return, they'd hide the evidence and might target someone else. Hanging up, I leaned toward the driver. "Change of plans. We're heading back to Montclair." "Sir, you seem really upset. Maybe reconsider," he replied. "This isn't a rushed decision," I reassured him. I caught my reflection in the mirror. Sometimes you gotta decide between playing it safe and doing the right thing. The ride home felt different now. The streetlights didn't seem confusing. They seemed driven, purposeful. Each mile brought me closer to the conflict, confronting the son I raised, the family I trusted, and the new beginning I'd have to forge. I could hear Margaret in my mind, reminding, family means truth, even when it's tough. 20 minutes later, as we turned onto Hill Street, police cars passed by, their lights off, but identities clear. My heart raced, knowing I was about to turn my family inside out to protect myself and others. "Wait around the corner," I told the driver. "I might be a while." Walking up that winding driveway felt ominous, like heading to an execution. The elegant exterior masked a chilling betrayal within. My hand quivered as I reached for the doorbell. It was time to confront my son. The doorbell's chime echoed like a somber toll. Footsteps approached quickly, too quickly for someone not worried. Rick answered, his face a mix of relief and suspicion. "Dad, where have you been?" he asked, giving a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We were really concerned." "Sorry, son," I replied, my voice feigning regret. "Just needed some fresh air after that indulgent meal." "Feeling dizzy?" he pressed, eyes sharp. "You've been gone nearly half an hour." Emma feared the worst. "Time got away from me," I replied casually. "Lovely neighborhood. Strolled further than planned." Emma joined Rick, her elegant dress slightly rumpled from pacing. Her perfect hostess persona slipped, revealing her anxiety. "Jonathan, you scared us," she said, her voice tinged with nervousness as her hand lightly rested on my arm, fingers trembling ever so slightly. "Feeling better now?" "Much better," I assured her, allowing her to lead me inside, noting how her grip lingered, a tad too tight. "Just needed to clear my head." The foyer now felt cramped, more like a trap than a grand entrance. Every elegant touch screamed of the illicit funds fueling this flashy display. "Maybe I had too much wine at dinner?" Emma laughed, but there was a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "Let me get you some water." "Actually," I cut in, "I'd like to sit back down." Purposefully, I made my way back to the dining room. "If that's okay with you." Rick and Emma exchanged a glance loaded with meaning I wasn't supposed to catch. Their synchronized response was like a scripted play dialogue they almost forgot. "Of course, Dad. Whatever you need." The dining room had been cleaned up while I was briefly away. Papers that were everywhere earlier now mysteriously disappeared. Maria flitted between the kitchen and dining room with even more nervous energy. I sank back into my chair at the head of the table, Rick and Emma in their usual spots. The crystal glasses were gone, dinner plates stacked neatly, yet tension hung in the air. "Hope you don't mind," Emma stated carefully. "We tidied up to make things easier for Maria." "Very considerate," I said nonchalantly, wondering what evidence they hurried to hide. I noticed Rick's fingers tapping the table, a childhood habit revealing his nerves now. "So, Dad, feel better? No more dizzy spells?" he asked, the question hinting at something deeper. "Clear as a bell, son. Fresh air works wonders." Emma leaned in, concern seemingly genuine. "As we get older, you know, rich meals can hit us differently. Maybe something lighter next time." "Next time," she said, as if tonight wouldn't change everything. "I've always had a strong constitution," I replied coolly. "Takes more than some good food and wine to put me down." Maria brought fresh water glasses, moving swiftly and efficiently. As she placed mine, her fingers brushed the table, slightly shaky. Rick glanced at his watch, a subtle gesture almost missed. Whatever timeline they were working against was running out. "Well," he said with a forced cheer, "since you're good now, maybe we could keep the evening going." Emma's super excited for more chatting. "Totally." Emma's smile was bright enough to brighten the whole room. "There's a lot we've got to catch up on, though I felt a shift had happened while I was out. A sense of urgency seeped through their polished exterior. It was like the night was heading towards a stormy climax. Rick suddenly got up and went to the liquor cabinet. "Hey, Dad, how about one last toast before we wrap up?" I noticed Rick's hands were a bit shaky as he poured whiskey into fresh crystal glasses. I observed him taking extra care with mine, pouring more whiskey that shimmered differently from the others. "You know," I began casually, "I've been meaning to tell you about the day you were born, Rick." He seemed a bit tense. "Dad, that's sweet, but shouldn't we toast first? This whiskey's too good to let sit." "This is important, son," I insisted, settling into my chair, hands resting calmly. "Your mom was in labor for 14 hours. It was the longest day ever." Emma leaned forward with a hint of urgency. "Jonathan, the whiskey will lose its taste if we wait. Can't we toast and hear the story?" "Patience," I said. "Some stories are worth the wait." I watched as Rick brought the glasses over, noticing a bit of sediment swirling in mine under the chandelier's light. Where was I? Oh yes, Margaret was worried about how long it was taking. Rick placed my glass down carefully, ensuring I noticed the generous pour. His own glass was noticeably clearer. "The doctor kept saying everything was fine," I continued, raising my glass as if to inspect the whiskey. "But your mom had a sixth sense for when something wasn't right." "Interesting," Emma chimed in with a strained smile. "But isn't that toast ready? Family stories pair so well with fine whiskey." I slowly swirled my glass, seeing unfamiliar particles floating in the golden liquid. Zetra, my nameless contact, had warned, enough to make me compliant, easily swayed, maybe even tricked into signing away everything Margaret and I had built. "You're right about savoring good whiskey," I agreed, lifting the glass to my lips, but not drinking. "Margaret always said that patience makes everything sweeter." Rick's eye twitched. "Dad, you've been talking a while. It really is getting warm," he urged. "Stories make time fly," I remarked, raising my glass to postpone drinking. Did I tell you how small you were at birth? Just 6 pounds, yet you had this grip that was unbelievably strong. Emma suddenly got up, walked behind my chair, and placed her hands on my shoulders with a comfortable ease. "Jonathan, you really have a knack for storytelling," she said. "Let's drink to Rick's birth, and then you can continue." Her grip on my shoulders grew tighter. Their plan was unraveling, and they could feel it. "Your mom always claimed you were stubborn from the start," I went on, acting as if I didn't notice Emma's hold. "And she was spot on, wasn't she? When you make up your mind, nothing can stop you." Rick's tough facade began to falter. "Dad, just take a sip, then tell us more about Mom," he pleaded. "Stubbornness," I mused, keeping my glass untouched. "It can be a gift or a curse. Margaret worried about which route you'd take." The room fell silent, except for the gentle clatter of dishes from the kitchen where Maria was. Rick and Emma looked at me, caught between frustration and urgency as their scheme fell apart. "Margaret would be heartbroken with your choices, I think," I said slowly. Rick paled. "What do you mean?" Before I answered, 3 firm knocks resounded from the front door, confident and unmistakable. "Police, open up!" The sound of handcuffs followed as Rick's glass shattered on the marble floor, his face turning ghostly white. The senior officer entered with authority, the room frozen in shock. "Richard Miller, you're under arrest for attempted poisoning, fraud, and elder abuse." The officer's words weighed heavy, laced with the gravity of familial betrayal. "You have the right to remain silent." "This is insane!" Rick's voice wavered, sounding like a stressed-out teenager. "Officer, it's a misunderstanding. My dad's confused." "Dad, please." Emma's voice was strained, like a kettle about to boil over. "Tell them it's all wrong." I stood up slowly, still clutching the full glass of spiked whiskey. The swirling sediment inside shimmered like hidden secrets in amber. "There's no mistake here. This whiskey has Zetra. My son added it to pressure me into signing business transfer papers." The junior officer handled the glass carefully, his gloves ensuring it stayed uncontaminated. The chandelier's glow highlighted the treacherous specks, like a neon sign flashing betrayal. "Trying to poison someone can earn you 8 to 12 years in prison," the senior officer informed Rick as he locked the handcuffs. "Fraud and elder abuse will add even more time." Rick nearly buckled at the knees. 12 years? But if I don't pay up in 11 days, the loan sharks will find me." Emma turned ashen. "Rick, stop talking, for the love of God." But he was past that point. "Dad, you don't understand. They threatened to break my legs, then worse. I was trapped." "You had choices," I said softly. "You gambled away your family, chose crime over an honest living, and now you tried to poison me instead of facing the consequences." The officers exchanged a glance. "They've heard every excuse imaginable, but poisoning your father over gambling debts, that's something else." "Emma Miller," the junior officer said, "you're also under arrest for being an accomplice." "No, please," Emma cried, her manicured nails digging into the table. "Rick coerced me. I was cornered." The senior officer remained unmoved, having heard it all before. "Ma'am, the evidence shows you studied his routines and were part of the drug scheme." As Rick and Emma were led away, Rick cast one last desperate glance at me. "Dad, how could you do this to us? Mom would be heartbroken." "Your mom valued honesty above all else," I replied firmly. "She'd never forgive what you tried to pull tonight." Maria walked in from the kitchen, her usual composed demeanor replaced by a blend of relief tinged with sadness. She'd seen justice prevail, but was well aware of the personal toll it had taken. The mansion fell into silence, with only the sound of car doors closing and engines starting outside. Flashing blue and red lights danced across the elegant walls, signaling the night's conclusion. Alone in the dining room, where my own family had nearly brought me to ruin, I sensed Margaret's presence, like a comforting hand on my shoulder. she would have made the same decision. Shattered crystal lay around, and poisoned whiskey pooled like exposed secrets, a reminder of how close I came to losing everything. My phone buzzed with a message from the senior officer. Station processing 2 to 3 hours. Need your formal statement. Time to wrap up what I had started and ensure true justice was served. Despite the late hour, Montclair Police Station buzzed with activity from DUI arrests and domestic disturbances, now compounded by my family's criminal saga. Rick and Emma, now in separate cells, looked out of place in their fancy clothes against the dull gray of the walls. Through thick glass, I could see Rick pacing like a trapped animal, occasionally glancing my way, his expression dancing between anger and despair. "Mr. Miller," Detective Harrison set down his coffee with care. "Tell me again about the Zetrulum. How did you know to look for it?" "I received a tip-off," I explained. "A call came in about the plan, with details on the drug and its effects. Any thoughts on who called you?" I thought about Maria, her meticulous observation during dinner without being obvious. No idea, but whoever it was saved my life. Emma's cries rang out from her cell. The station's chaos enveloped the women's holding area, where her frantic cries cut through like a siren. "This is all Rick's doing," she yelled. "I only went along because I was scared." Detective Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Fear doesn't usually justify conspiracy to commit elder abuse and fraud," he noted. "We found those legal documents in Rick's office, power of attorney, business transfers, and more." How long will their sentences be, one might wonder? Just the attempted poisoning? That alone could mean 8 to 12 years, but with conspiracy, elder abuse, and fraud, Rick faced 15 to 20 years. Emma might get a lighter sentence if she cooperated, but it was still substantial. The numbers felt surreal. My son would spend his 40s in prison because he couldn't face his gambling problem. "The loan sharks he mentioned," Detective Harrison continued. "I need details on those threats. It could explain his desperation, though it doesn't justify attempted murder." Looking out the window, I saw Rick slouched on the narrow bench in his cell, his head in his hands. 2 decades spent raising him, teaching right from wrong, now shattered by his refusal to face his own mistakes. "Dad," he called, his voice echoing through the station when he spotted me. "Please, I'll repay everything. I'll get help. I'll change." Promises he'd made before during our arguments over money. Promises that once duped a younger, more trusting me. Detective Harrison, having seen Rick's outburst, spoke to me with calm resolve. "Mr. Miller, he'll keep trying to manipulate you. It's common in family financial crimes." "I know," I acknowledged, remembering how his mother often said I was too lenient. "Perhaps if I'd been tougher earlier—" "It's not your fault, sir," the detective reassured me. "Adult children make their own choices." Emma appeared at her cell window, makeup smeared like war paint down her face. "Jonathan, please talk to them. Tell them I was coerced. I never wanted to hurt you." Her desperation mirrored Rick's when caught lying as a child. Neither wanted to take responsibility, both blamed others. I had only one question for the detective. "The person who warned me risked everything to save a stranger. If I met them, I'd want to help." "Understood." He nodded. "If they come forward, we'll make sure their cooperation is recognized." The harsh glare from the station's fluorescent lights revealed everything, laying bare the ugly truth. My family's polished exterior had shattered, uncovering the messy reality underneath. 3 hours passed, and all the paperwork and official statements were sorted out. An officer in the lobby came over to me, holding out car keys. "You ready to head home, Mr. Miller? We'll drive you back to Brooklyn." I hesitated, looking at my phone, drawn to the number that had been my lifeline. I have to make one call first to thank someone who deserves to know the outcome. The call was picked up after just 2 rings, and Maria Gonzalez's familiar voice, filled with genuine concern, greeted me. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Maria, it's you. You saw it all, and had the courage to help. "I couldn't stand by and let them hurt you," she said. "You were always decent to me, unlike your son and daughter-in-law, who treated me like I was invisible." Sitting on the lobby bench late at night, tears filled my eyes, not from pain, but from gratitude for her bravery. "Maria, how did you find out about everything?" 3 days ago, I was in Mr. Rick's office doing my cleaning, and I overheard their plan. They talked as if I weren't even there, assuming I wouldn't understand or care. Their indifference hit me hard, even more than their scheme itself. It was clear then. My son had grown cold, dismissing people's worth based on their job or nationality. I heard them discuss everything, from the drug to the papers, and Emma dug into your interests and business routines to use against you. You risked your job, maybe even deportation, to help someone you barely knew. "Not a stranger," she corrected, her tone gentle. "A good man who reminded me of home." My dad was the kind who'd say, "Please and thank you," and really listen when you talked. The cop gestured that my car was ready, but this conversation seemed far more important. "Maria, can I ask you something? Do you have another job lined up yet?" "No, sir. I doubt I'll get a recommendation from the Millers after tonight," she answered. "I own 7 restaurants in Brooklyn and need a manager for my latest one. Someone trustworthy, with a moral compass like yours." There was a pause on the line, and then Maria spoke again, her voice shaking with emotion. "Mr. Miller, you don't need to do this. This isn't charity. I need people who act rightly even when no one's looking. You proved tonight that's who you are. The starting pay is $60,000, with health benefits, profit sharing after a year, and a clear path for promotion." Maria's sobs echoed through the phone. "Sir, I don't know what to say. Just say you'll start Monday at 10 a.m. in Crown Heights. I'll be there to train you." The officer waited while I wrapped up with Maria. We exchanged info, set up her start date, and I promised to help with a work visa if needed. When I finally hung up, I felt light, as if a weight lifted off my shoulders. The ride back to Brooklyn was quiet and calm. We passed through familiar streets, glowing with light, areas where truth mattered more than money, and people worked hard without expecting a bailout for their mistakes. My humble home greeted me like an old friend. The fridge was covered with family snapshots, pictures of Rick growing up, Emma's wedding, and Margaret grinning from happier times. I took down Rick's photo, not to erase it, but to tuck it away in a kitchen drawer. Some memories are worth saving, just not always on display. I removed Emma's wedding picture too. Margaret stayed, her smile now a reminder of justice done and new friendships born from courage. In my calendar, I scribbled, "Maria, 10 a.m. Monday," noting an important appointment. Beneath that, I added, "New beginning." Outside, Brooklyn hummed with honest late-night movement, the night shift crowd heading home, early risers starting their workday. These were the people who understood that integrity couldn't be bought or taken through family deceit. Margaret would have been thrilled about what went down with Maria. She always used to say, "The best workers do what's right for the right reasons, no matter what it costs them." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Detective Harrison. "Both suspects formally charged. Trial set for August. You'll play a key role in the case." I switched off the lights and made my way upstairs, finally ready to enjoy a peaceful night's sleep. Tomorrow would bring its own set of challenges, but for now, good people had put justice in motion by making some tough calls. In my bedroom, Margaret's cologne still rested on the dresser, reminding me that love is about shielding people from harm, especially when the threat comes from within the family.